Hey guys, this is Eric Weingartner with Weingartner Racing. Today's Saturday, so usually it's an update video, but this one's going to be long. And because a lot's happening this week, and I thought I'd share it with you. Before you're like, I'm not watching this. I actually do need you guys' input. I need your actual help. And it's about turbo stuff. So please stick around because I actually am going to ask some turbo questions. And I know you're thinking, I thought you knew everything. It turns out I do not know everything. I know it's a shock to everyone. Especially my wife, but I do not know everything. I need your help. I'd also like to thank you guys for sticking around to watch this video because I am super proud of my 19,700 subscribers. I never thought I'd grow this big, and I'm very happy that it is, and really do appreciate that. Although even saying this, I don't understand YouTube at all. Here's what I mean. Because I had more time this week in a way, I noticed there's so many other channels that have like 46,000 subscribers. And the human nature of us, instead of being like, I'm happy I have 19,700, I'm more like, why do they have 46,000 subscribers? Why do they have 23,000 views on a video that they never say anything on in the first 3 hours? And I tell like a wealth of knowledgeable information and I'll have 1,500. That's probably the envy thing. So I should be super proud of what I have, but I don't. But the point is, I don't understand YouTube, but I'm thankful for all of you guys that do stick around to watch it. It does truly make a difference. So, what's happened this week? Well, let's get to it. The biggest thing that happened this week was I had a surgery done on my heart on Wednesday. I had an ablation. I'll make it really fast on this, why it all happened, and we'll go from there. Really fast, my son's into swimming, which you're like, what's that got to do with the heart surgery? Just give me a minute. And since he's into swimming, I tried to be the good father that I'm not by telling him how to swim faster at swimming events. And his response to me is, you don't know how to swim, so don't tell me how could you tell me to be faster? Which he's right, I couldn't swim. And you're like, you're 43 years old, you don't know how to swim, what's wrong with you? It turns out if you're poor as a child, you probably won't have access to a pool. And if you don't live near a lake, you probably won't have access to water to swim. And that's where I was. So he had a point, so I decided, you know what? I'm gonna learn to swim so I could tell him how to swim. I know, as I'm saying this, it sounds totally stupid because it is. It turns out that when I tried doing that, it kind of messed up my heart. It caused something called an AFib, which means your heart doesn't beat a normal rhythm. And I had 4 AFib episodes, 2 of them, they shocked my heart back into rhythm. Doesn't mean I was gonna die or nothing like that. I mean, I guess it could lead to death. But it feels horrible and it makes you just want to pass out standing up. And it feels like you got a squirrel running around inside your chest. So anyway, doctor's like, hey, we've got a way that I think that can fix it. And it's called an ablation. Essentially what they do is they cut open your groin. They go through your femoral artery, which is that artery that leads all the way up to your heart. And they make some scar tissue in your heart so the electrical signals can't transfer over, and it should fix all that. I had that on Wednesday. Now I'm going to talk about my Wednesday because it's a fabulous day. So let's start off with this. I made a mistake of answering my phone because this is the call I took at 9 a.m. and I'm supposed to be at the hospital at 10:30. So let's look at this picture and I'll tell you the story. These are the Liberty heads, the Liberty LS3 heads. I did a video saying these are my favorite heads for an LS3, which they were. And I had sold a set to a customer. That video was these actual heads, and it was made put it together for a solid roller. Everything's fine. The customer goes and runs it and said, man, it's got quite a bit more power. He goes, races it the next day, and he's like, something's wrong. He says, I've got some pretty bad leakage in some of the cylinders, and it's coming from the valve job. And I was like, okay, please send him back in. He sends him back in. I tear him apart, and I find this. Now, you might be curious what you're seeing there. Look at the outer part of the actual seat ring. You'll see that it looks like carbon. That is not carbon. That's chunks of the seat that have been missing, that have broken off and popped out. So, yeah, and that's on, of the 8 cylinders, 8 intakes, 7 of them did this. So you see huge chunks that are gone. I shouldn't say huge, but there are definitely chunks of them that are gone. So that puts metal in between the valve seat and the valve itself, which then embedded itself in the valve, and it did some damage. Definitely not ideal. So I called Liberty up, and I was like, hey, your seats broke off in your heads. They're like, oh my gosh, this never happened. You know, the classic line. I was like, well, they said, send them back to us and we'll take a look. So they actually came, they actually sent me a call tag and they picked them up. And they had them for about a week. And I'm getting ready to go into surgery about an hour away. And like I said, I make the mistake of answering the phone. And I get a call from Liberty and they're like, sorry, man, nothing we can do. Excuse me? Yeah, you modified them. And I know you're looking at the head right now and you're thinking, modified them? Yeah. You see that cartridge roll that's right below the valve job right there? Yeah, and the blending of the chambers, that's the modification done. So yeah, I blended their valve job and the chambers. And because of that, they're not going to do anything. So you might be asking yourself also, what did that have to do with the seats breaking? I've asked myself that same question. Because the seats breaking had nothing to do with me blending. But they're like, we're not going to do anything about it. We'll send them back to you. How about that? Sound good? Okay. That's all we're going to do. Thank you so much. So I wasn't, needless to say, very heated. But I'm an hour or so from having my groin cut open. So, yeah, I shouldn't have answered the phone. But anyway, I'll probably do a later video about this whole thing. But there you go. So yeah, that got my blood boiling a little bit. And then I go to do your check-in with the hospital and they start doing all your stuff. I've never had a surgery done ever before. So I never had anesthesia before either. And I have to say the whole thing is kind of weird. So in my mind, I should have asked way more questions beforehand. And I didn't because I didn't know what to ask. So what they're going to do is I thought they would cut one leg, maybe my right leg, and they're going to cut there and get to that femoral artery. That's the one where if you cut, you'll bleed to death. That comes up soon. And then they take that wire and they go up to your heart and do your thing, right? Well, I probably should have asked more questions because they're like, we're going to have to shave you. And we have a nurse's tech that was there that was like, we're going to have to shave your groin area. And she's like, would you feel more comfortable having a guy do it? And I was like, hell no. Hell no. But then I also felt bad for her because I'm like, oof. Yeah. So I don't know. I had a lot of anesthesia. I don't know if I said this before or after to her, but I think I might have said I'm a grower, not a shower. Yeah, that was, anyway, that was interesting. That sucked. I've also, since never being underneath anesthesia before, it's kind of a weird experience because it's like this. You're laying on a table and everything's fine, right? And they're like, breathe into this thing. And then when you wake up, all of a sudden your throat's sore. Your groin feels like someone punched you twice in it. Your chest is sore and you've got a massive headache. So 1 second normal, next second it's like literally like, what the hell happened? So I'll go through them. They put a breathing tube down your throat. And I guess it irritated there, which I didn't even know there was a breathing tube until someone told me. So then my throat's all kind of weird. My chest kind of hurt from the whole burning of the heart thing, but that's normal, nothing bad. The groin hurt because they have sutures in there, just because, now this is important, and this is why I should have asked questions. When they cut through your femoral artery, they have to make you lie flat for hours so that it seals up. Now they put me on a blood thinner, so underneath normal circumstances, most people, it's probably going to clot and be normally fine. But because you're on a blood thinner, that makes it even worse. Anyway, when they were taking out the sutures and tugging at it, that actually did hurt. So someone said it was really painful. No, that wasn't painful at all. I mean, it was painful in a way, but not horrible. The most painful part is the headache. I don't know how druggies do it. I truly don't, because I looked at what they gave me for anesthesia. One of them was fentanyl. I had the worst headache. And you can't take anything for it because when you're on blood thinners, the only thing they can give you is Tylenol. You can't take ibuprofen or lead. And it was bad. That part sucked. Also, I'm like in and out of stuff. And of course, everybody's trying to check on you and they're being the nice thing. But you're high as a kite. Quite frankly, you're there, but whatever, and you're trying to figure out what's all happened to you. But anyway, I recovered, everything was fine. And so, but the thing is, they came in and they gave me the after, and by the way, they're telling you when you're still halfway coming out of anesthesia, like you're not all the way out, they're like, all right, here's what you need to do. You can't lift anything more than 10 pounds for, I think it was a week or two. I think it's a week for sure, and 30 pounds after 2 weeks. And you're like, what happens if you do? That's kind of my thought, you know? Turns out you die. What'll happen is it'll tear the wounds down by your femoral artery. And you would think, well, you're just going to bleed out. And you're like, clearly sign looks like I peed my pants, but it's blood. No, it's going to bleed sometimes between your skin and it'll look all bruised up, which it kind of does now, because the day after I'd have thought, I can handle some work. No, you can't. So I'm saying this because it turns out I am going to have to wait a while to do anything in the shop. So I am even further behind in the shop, and that's the whole point that I'm trying to get at here is, especially for this customer in Australia, I thought for sure I would have your work done by now, but I can't even pick up the head. So anything done in the shop, I have to have my son come out to help me, which I love having him out here. My son, if you don't know who he is, I call him Bishop. He was named after the Marvel superhero because he's going to save the world. I just know it. But anyway, he's a huge help in the shop. He's 15 years old. He goes to do his driving permit, I think in 2 weeks. Great kid, and honestly, he's a great worker out here. So he has to move everything around out here, but he's so busy with everything else with swimming and stuff that it's kind of hard. By the way, he's like 6'1", so he is taller than me, and he's a hell of it. He's gonna be great at swimming. He's come a long way. But anyway, point being is I can't really do much because I got to do stuff. He's got to pretty much carry or pick up everything here, and I can't sit or stand too long. I pretty much have to lie flat. It feels like. So anyway, that's kind of slowed me down. But at the beginning, I asked you for turbo questions because this came about from a conversation with Bishop. And for those of you who have teenagers, you will understand this frustration. He will not talk much. So if you ask your teenage son, daughter, I guess, questions about, and you're just trying to really have a conversation with him because you want to stay in their life, you want to be kind of, close to them. Under most circumstances, I get yes, no, it's fine, okay, yeah, gotcha, no, yes, I don't know. That's pretty much the majority of it, except for when he works in the shop. So when he's working with me, he actually has real conversations. So remember I asked you for some turbo questions? This is it. Okay, here's where the questions lie. While my son and I were talking out here in the shop, I have a Nova, which I'm probably just going to give to him. And you haven't seen it hardly on the channel. I think I've showed one picture of it one time. The car itself, as far as the chassis work, the cage, the front suspension is amazing. And it's pretty much a drag car. The outside of it is absolutely hideous. It's like a 76 Nova, so it's not like, or 78. It's not one of the prettier Novas styles to me, but it's really nice. Anyway, when the chassis work was done, it had 2 motor plates, one for a small block and one for a big block. So as he's talking, the one thing that he always wanted was a turbo motor. And that's the reason why I'm asking you turbo stuff. This engine, what you see here, is the one that came out of the truck. This one, as soon as I am able to get around, I'm taking this to the dyno because I told you guys I would. And we're going to re-dyno this on pump gas, methanol, and E85. That's as soon as I recover. I'm able to do what I need to get this into the truck. That's going to happen. So maybe 2-3 weeks, something like that. But I want to put this in the Nova for him, and I want to make it for turbo. Now, several of you are like, I don't think you could do this, because if you pay attention to my channel, you'll know this engine is a little bit different. What I mean is, it's 11.9 compression ratio. Now, it does have a Scat Forged crankshaft, Scat Forged rods, and SRP Forged pistons. This is a stock 350 block, and it is a 357, it's actually board 40 over. But it's a stock block, but I had the splayed caps put on the centers. And I know several of you probably read wrong misperceptions that these cannot take boost, the small block Chevy stock blocks. That's not true at all. And anyway, I'm only going to try to have this thing make about 800 to 900 horsepower. So you're like, I don't think you could do it with what you got, and you're correct. What I'm gonna do is, after the dyno thing's over, I'm gonna probably pop off the heads and intake, and because it's 11.9, that's too much really, I think, for a turbo for something that's gonna be driven around town. So it's not strictly race. He actually wants to drive it to high school and stuff, which I totally get. Not every day, but just kind of show off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the heads off. I'm going to have the chamber CNC soften. That will open up the chamber volume. I think they're 62 now. It'll probably bring them to like 72 or so. So that will lower the compression ratio down considerably, and also gives it more tolerance and stuff. And I don't mind if he runs on E85. And then of course, I'm gonna switch out the NA cam. We'll put one that's better for turbo, and also not so as aggressive as far as the lobe design, because you really don't need that for the turbo stuff, especially on the exhaust side. And that's what's going to happen with this. But this is where the question comes in really for you guys. I understand how turbos work, but I don't have any of the idea what pieces you actually need. What I mean by that is, you could say GT45, S465, and I don't have a clue what any of them mean or how much power they'll be capable of taking. I also don't know what, I know I looked on eBay to see what kits they have. They look kind of horrible, to be quite honest with you, and I'm not sure. There's probably a better route that someone's several gone to. I would think twins would be better, but I'm betting for the power range, it probably just needs a single. So my question for you guys is, if you guys have part numbers for turbos you would recommend, and I'm not going to be, hey, let's get a precision turbo for this deal and let's get the best of the best. I'm talking, I want to keep it really cheap. So it'll end up having probably a Terminator throttle body EFI on the top, and that's how it'll run. Maybe a Sniper, but I'm not going to do multi-port. I'm just not going to spend the money for that type of fuel injection, not for this. And it just want a real basic turbo kit, and pretty much between 800 and 900 horsepower. If I could wick it up to 1,000, sure, but do I really want to? No. I think that's just more than what he'll need, because I'm going to try to get it to make, like I said, between 8 and 9. That should be easy, because I bet you it's going to make 600 NA when we take it to the dyno. But that should be easy. But I really want him and his Nova to be able to run with me and with my truck with that motor. So that would be interesting. So that's where I need your help. I really do need your information on part numbers for the turbo, like what wastegates, blow-off valves. And I don't have a clue on any of that stuff, what to get. I don't know have any of that. That knowledge bank doesn't exist. I know how to port heads to work with turbos and intakes as well, but the actual pieces that you need, I don't have the part numbers, this is better than this one as far as turbos, wastegates, blow-off valves, none of it, boost controllers, none of that. So I do need your help. Speaking of the truck, here's some other things that have happened. The third member for the S10 came in. This is it. This one came from Quick Performance and took forever. This is a 350 gear ratio. It's aluminum case. It's pretty much the best of the best that you can get for this, except for it's a standard gear. It's not a pro gear, because I'm going to drive this on the street, obviously, and do some drag and drive events and things. I know some of you are thinking 350 gear ratio seems pretty low, especially with your power glide and 1.8 ratio. It seems like it's going to be a mistake. I agree, except for I did some math and I figured out the torque, and then I multiplied it by the power glide ratio, and it's still going to be putting more torque to the ground than it did with the 456s and the smaller engine NA. So I think this is going to work, but if not, I don't mind changing gear ratios later. But this is it. Pretty happy. By the way, you see this beautiful case it's in? This is not how it comes. When you get it, it's going to be in a cardboard box, and inside the box, you're going to find a 5-gallon bucket that they've wedged it in. Under normal circumstances, it'd be no big deal, but I just came out of surgery, and I couldn't get it out because I couldn't lift 10 pounds. Watching my son try to get this out of a 5-gallon bucket was also quite amazing. He ended up cutting the bucket, and you see that top hole. He kind of cut into that bolt hole on the top there, trying to get the bucket cut loose so he can pull it out. Under normal circumstances, it wouldn't have bothered because I could have probably ripped it out, but injured. So yeah, that came in, so that's good news. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up the video because most of you, quite frankly, haven't watched this far. If you have help on the turbo stuff, please let me know. Put a comment on what the parts are that you would get for headers and all that. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Really appreciate every one of you. You guys take care.